Okay, well, it looks to be like the video join worked, at least what testing I could do, and it's uploading. So here we're on, I think the fourth sequence. I'm pretty much going to be doing one video per sequence. I really want to dig into this and be able to babble more than usual on this one. First player, priority, needs to dump shares, and he did so. Dumped a bunch of Susquehanna and Alton and Southern that he was holding on. Well, a couple of them that he was holding on to. Basically, these were filling out portfolio and taking up space. They're producing money so far, but not all that much. All those shares in there is somewhat problematic, but we'll see what people do in reaction to them. Obviously, you know, that's going to crush the stock value again, which, you know, it's not like the Alton and Southern has a lot of money that it can resurrect itself from. That situation, it could take out more loans, but that just makes it a more and more questionable operation for the owner. Possibly a huge quantity of loans sitting in acquisition isn't that bad, with the Grand Trunk ready to jump in and try to save it, which also will probably make it not that valuable a short sell, because, you know, sure, it's losing $25 if it makes it back up to here or whatever per share, which is a decent amount of money that you can take out of it with your short sales, but it's also I'm trying to think what I was going to say. It's also producing some money, so it ends up kind of a wash probably as to whether or not to hold them as an investment. The only question is, can you afford to buy them back at this point, or do you just have to hold on to those short sales? And if you're holding the short sales, you're doing more damage to the company, so that's kind of cool. I sold off all of those shares, bought myself a Pittsburgh and Lake Erie from the company because it's kind of the best thing out there. The Elgin is also looking pretty decent, and I'm looking at using this funding for the Union rather than and try to just do one company at a time. So the Arcade and Attica, yeah, I mean, how am I going to get rid of that debt? I don't know. But my stock value is just not that high, so I'm not going to be able to pump much money in. So it's possible that the Union ends up, you know, playing trains with the Arcade and Attica and trying to do some juggling to get this debt problem in hand. The Union does not have a debt problem at all, and it's going to have a big flush of cash, which it doesn't need to use. Well, it will need to use to get a couple of fives or something like that, which would be a really, really sweet setup. So we'll keep working our way up. With all the tokens this game provides and how complex this stock round is likely to be, over here I bought an Elgin and Joliet from the corporation. I'm going to use markers because there's a lot of station markers in this game, and most of the corporations don't have very many of them out yet. Eventually they might. Well, generally I don't think many corporations end up filling their quota anyway. But I'm going to use these just to indicate, hey, I can't buy this company because it's kind of an issue. I haven't made my decision yet on the Alton and Southern, whether I want to, you know, buy one of them up. That could be a problem if that set starts decreasing. I also have enough cash in here. Maybe I'll buy some New York and Susquehannas, put that in there, and get the keep that from dropping as much. But I'm full up on what I'm allowed to hold, which is, I find that kind of disturbing, actually. I wish players could, like I said, the first time I played it, I didn't notice a couple of things. I didn't notice you could shift trains, and I didn't notice that there was an actual share limit per company, which meant that, and it kind of made sense because, you know, you hold 100% of the company with the 2-share thing, so I don't know. But other games that have that kind of mechanism sometimes allow you to hold the whole corporation. And I kind of like that because it allows you to protect the stocks from being screwed around if you're willing to, invest your certificate limit and your cash. In doing so, you can. Now here, you got the corporation and it can do it, but the one kind of iffy effect of that I didn't like was that it was possible for a player to buy like 150% of the company and then force people to stay in the short sale position or something equivalent to that, where a group of people are holding all the shares and they're too valuable, and then you can't unload your short sales, and that's not reasonable. However, there are different costs to the short sale, and I don't mind. I don't mind if abusing the short sales causes you to get into that kind of position, but clearly, if the owner of the company can't own all the shares, well, probably some of the shares end up in the corporation itself, where they're available for the short sellers to start cleaning up, which makes things a little different. There are shares available to be redeemed, and I think there kind of always should be. So that way of playing did cause some definite problems. Pittsburgh and Erie being picked up over there, and Elgin and Joliet there again. This guy exchanging some of the stuff that he doesn't want to hold in order to buy shares that are potentially more valuable. Although I do need some cash. Nope. I floated that all out. Yeah, I don't know what I need. Yeah. And we're not sure where we're going to go. Because here's one thing. In this game, you can hold a company on a couple of shares. If it's got a lot of debt, nobody's going to want it. It's like an 1830 game. But you may not want to throw it in the open market where it's going to depress the stock value even more to the point where it's an acquisition available and maybe it can't make it out, but it can clear most of its debt and becomes attractive and ends up selling for not very much. This guy's got an interesting question. He spent a lot of his money on the Pittsburgh, boosting it up, making it look better. I don't have enough money to buy another share of it. Maybe if I sell some stuff. I also have this Alton and Southern short, which I don't have to buy right away. There's a lot of shares out there. And also, maybe it's not that great. If the fives fall hard, that thing's going to die. And if I can get enough, if there's enough shares out there to depress the value, and it looks like there are, and I can add more, maybe short selling it more is advantageous. The problem with short selling it more, if I do, I have sold a share of it and I cannot redeem my short shares if the world starts looking more interesting. The other side, so I could get locked in a losing situation that I can't get myself out of. And that can sometimes happen in some of the others. The other side, there's only one of these left. So if I don't pick it up, I may not have the opportunity, depending on whether or not other people are buying theirs back. So far, nobody is. Which is, kind of interesting. What about the Susquehanna? Well, it's got a lot more train on it. It probably can redeem its situation. The Alton and Southern, though, we have a feeder with a decent amount of money. I'm left in kind of a, gosh, I don't know. Maybe I need that loan money to be able to buy myself a Pittsburgh, or maybe I just sell some stuff that doesn't look like it's going to do very well, like the New York and Susquehanna, for example, which is at $60, and I don't think it'll put me up enough, will it? Yeah, it'll just do, won't it? to be able to buy that Pittsburgh. Sounds good to me. Some mistaken assumptions here. Normally, Phase 5 for the 1830 flavor of games, and I kind of count this in that, although this is like a different branch off with this flat stock market and the multiple payouts and stuff. The Phase 5 train drops you down to only holding 2 trains per company, which means there's sort of a if you're able to buy the first 5 train, you're able to get 1, and then you have to discard a train. But if you're not able to get the first one, you're not able to get any, and that is kind of problematic. No, in this game you're allowed to get 3 trains, so I could actually buy a 5 train on the Pittsburgh, kind of no matter what. And it feels pretty damn good sitting there, especially with running 3 trains for a little while. Short on cash over here, with a lot of short position. End up shorting another Alton and Southern so that I can afford to start buying up the New York and Susquehannas and redeeming my short position on those. It looks like a much safer company. The Alton and Southern looks like it's in a lot of trouble still. Got myself in kind of a fuck up. This guy actually had a share over certificate. I dumped it. It was a Boston and Albany, which had a mark. It was selling. I don't know how I let myself do that. I don't think it's got much effect on things, but yeah, I've got more certificates than I want there. I may want to start buying up my Susquehannas. Well, I mean, I can't buy many, but I may want to buy one, to get it out of there. It looks like people are kind of getting rid of their short positions on them, so those should clear up. If he showed a signal by buying one back. And I think this guy was the other one with one, and he bought one back. So it looks to me like they're probably all going to get bought up. So I might as well make life a little harder by putting it in here. And it doesn't really make it any harder. I can't buy them myself. I don't have... Do I have anything... The other question is, do I want to get rid of my short position on the Alton Southern? And I don't think that's hurting me much. On the other hand, I don't think... Oh, hi. Couple of deer. I saw some motion. I don't think it's really killing me. So used to my other camera, which just, wakes up when you open the screen. You can't do it with this one because there's actually... the charger is inside under the screen, which is weird, and I don't know if there's any advantage to this design at all. But we're at the end of the sequence. Priority ended up here. A couple of players without full portfolios because they want to expand to 10-share companies. And that's something that I'm not used to in an XX game, to be honest. I'm not used to having to leave shared spaces open so that you can buy stuff during the operating rounds. 1870, if I recall correctly. Let me think. Price protection. I'm trying to remember how that works. I think the owner of the company is able to do the price protection, which means that they can actually end up above 100% through it. There's nothing similar to that here in terms of that over 100%. So it felt a lot closer the last time I played because I was playing with the, hey, you can hold as many shares as you want of a company as long as you're in the certificate limit. But you did have to leave yourself spaces to buy up things that were sold. You couldn't go over certificate limit, you could go over share limit. Anyway, other people, let's see, Susquehanna has gotten rid of its short sales, but the Alton and Southern is still completely shorted out, which is a problem. We'll see what happens there. Let's go through the companies. The Erie the Pittsburgh is sold out. The Boston and Albany is not, and in fact, it has 2 shares in the bank pool. Grand Trunk is actually sold out somehow. The Bessemer is not sold out, has a share in the bank pool, so that reduces its value, and I'll put that down there so I remember it. But now we're at this, which is still there, and this is where things get tricky. The Union got sold out completely. This one we're up to. The Joliet should be sold out completely. The Providence and Worcester is back 1. The New York and Ontario is back 2. The Alton and Southern, okay. There might be 100% out. No, there is not. Nobody bought any. So all we have out is his 60%, which means there should be like 90% in here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yeah. So that goes back 9 spaces. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Interesting acquisition possibility, because it's not going to be able to make it beyond here, but may be able to play around with its loans and look. Well, if it buys back loans, it might make it out further. But anyway, interesting possibility there. We're not going to see that in the first operating round, that's for sure. Okay, so that puts us to the Susquehanna, which has got 1 share in the bad place. And then finally the Arcade and Attica, which is just perfectly fine and there's nothing special going on. And we hit into the first operating round. And I think I need a break. Half tempted to switch back to the old camera where I can't see what's going on. I can't see how much time I have and everything, just because this one's such a pain in the butt. But continuing on with this one. Pittsburgh ran first. And nice 34 run. Looping around down here and out to Chicago. But new dot. Paid out completely. The money that I got from all those stock sales paid off my loans, so I managed to go forward a couple of times. I'm probably going to be so I'm kind of hard pressed here, because stock value can keep going up, or I could, start half swallowing and such not to build up the capital for buying one of these without taking out a bunch of loans. Of course, if I take out a bunch of loans, then when I run, I can run full and gain 2 spaces. Of course, you've got to pay off the loans, so that doesn't quite work, right? So yeah, it's kind of a mixed bag. Probably the best thing is to half swallow fairly soon. I just couldn't convince myself this time. Wanted to get more cash into my pocket. I'm not sure why. Some of that cash obviously is to cover any possible expenses for the Alton and Southern short, but I would have had enough for that. Or the other side of it, to buy shares in the next M&A round, not of the Pittsburgh, but of other companies. Or then again, maybe a new corporation will start. Because this 4 will be gone and we'll be on permanent trains, which means it's time for companies to start at that point. And of course, most of the players have a couple of corporations, but there's nothing that limits you to 2 in this game particularly. The last time I played, I saw people with 3 very easily, and they're the guy with only 1, so they're in a particularly interesting position to want to get another company. And the problem is they're not having 2 companies at the point of this exchange to the permanent trains, but the cost of entry for that is basically a 4 train, which he didn't see as valuable. He didn't have a lot of cash on hand, so he's just trying to build his 1 company good. By the way, that 1 strong company strategy is what worked best the last time I played, but again, that included a couple of factors. 1, no limit on how many certificates you could hold, or how many shares of a single company you could hold. So players who had gone for a strong company, weren't sharing out their income with other players. They had managed to consolidate their holdings in it, a la an 1835 type game, or maybe an 1829. And there's other games that have it as well. And the other big thing was, by not allowing sales of trains between companies, it meant that that second company doesn't give you the same safety valve. It doesn't give you the same operational advantages that it has. So this is, with the sale of trains and with the stock limit, this is probably more closely aligned to the 1830 experience than what I saw the first time I played it. I liked what I saw the first time I played it. A lot of stock and stock manipulation and skullduggery going on in it, but none of it like what I was used to, and that was really intriguing. Now it feels more like a normal 1830 based XX with more features on it, and it kind of impresses me less. Okay, Boston and Albany, half paid in order to get enough money to pay its interest on its loans. God, there's something fucking going on up in the park. Clapping and drum-like sounds and all kind of annoying shit. Actually, it sounded more like car doors slamming regularly more than drums, but I don't know. Not a lot on that hand. The Grand Trunk did something I don't see very often so far. It swallowed. Didn't really need to either. I mean, but I'm looking at it as a feeder for the Alton and Southern. I can lose stock value on it. What I can't do is I can't merge these two companies. So I need to get a train on here before the threes run out, and then buy it onto the Alton and Southern for very little, and let the Grand Trunk kind of run down. Maybe it's going to go into liquidation as the feeder for the Alton and Southern, as a hammer on these people who have shorted the shit out of it. And that's idiotic. I don't need to do that. I didn't realize I'm at 5 shares here. If I pay out, I can put money in here, which I can then put in there. So, yeah, screw that, man. We're going to boost it instead. So, it had a 14 run. So, instead of this, it's going to be out here. And then it'll probably start paying out half, if assuming things stay even. So, I'll move that money around. And I'm at one of those points where I fucked up and it's going to be hard to recover from. Calculating out the union, which was paying out, I notice it's a 5-share company and I've got 4 of the shares in one player's hands. Again, when you have things that change by the share size, it becomes especially painful to try to figure shit out. And he clearly wanted to buy this, protect his share price and shit like that. I don't know. Somebody else probably would have bought it. And I almost feel like I have to leave that in play because of it. It's the kind of thing where, oh, geez, and this could easily happen in a multiplayer game, too. It's not just me trying to handle things solo. I mean, unless you're keeping track on everybody, all their companies, doing what I'm trying to do in my head, mistakes like this are fucking going to happen. I'm not sure where I bought it from, who had it, what happened. It could have come from here. But if it had, someone else probably would have bought it. I'm just going to fucking leave it there. But yeah, I mean, it screws things up. And again, the mental burden of these changing share types in conjunction with changing number of shares that you're allowed to hold and all that kind of shit, it adds to the game, and it makes it more likely that you're going to fuck something up. So yeah, I'll just pay it out as though he owns that share because he paid for it and everything, and I'll try to rectify it as soon as possible. but I can't figure out how to rewind it, to tell you the truth. And in a sense, it's going to be rectified because this is going to shift to a 10-share company very shortly. But the other thing to go with this is the guy who's probably in the lead. Look at this cash. He's got $1,075 sitting there. He's doing really, really well with this. Running two companies at kind of a moderate level, a little bit of risk taken on, a little bit of loans on Arcade and Attica. We'll see how that works out. There's no real reason to merge the two. Although right now, the bridge across from east to west is kind of locked in here because of these coal mines. I think we're out of coal mines though, at least. But yeah, I mean, this is the guy I'd expect to win the game, and he just got kind of a boost by being able to buy his own share. What would it have meant otherwise? I don't know. You know, he might have been holding a share of something else. Because this is actually the number of certificates he wants to hold. So he probably would have had something else in his hands. I'm not sure what. As the Bessemer and Erie pays out full. Oh, nice little run. There's a share sitting out there that I'd love to have redeemed. I think what I'm going to do with them in the Boston and Albany, because there's not a lot of loans between these two, is I'm going to merge them. That gets me a longer lasting train in play, and then I can run for more money and maybe pay out half and still go forward and everything and generate myself some company revenue, take out some more loans, and start getting permanent trains. Is it a good synergy? It doesn't appear it yet, but if I can get around here once the Browns come in, it could be. If people start working to prevent that from happening, I could end up with kind of a shitty pair of disjointed routes. That probably won't work too well for me. Joliet's playing things a little safer this time. No good place for my dot. Just making sure that I didn't open anything up. I pumped up into here. Mainly seeing single track lays. I hate paying that $20 for a second track lay unless I really, really need it. Again, I'm a very conservative player in a lot of ways. The run was a big 300 run, but paying out half, that allowed me to pay off some loan. So I went forward 2 anyway, but didn't get as much cash into my pocket. I don't have a straight use for cash though. I've got a lot of shares of these two companies. They're both 10-share companies. There's not much I can do. My portfolio's full. I think the best thing I can do is try to make my companies work and live. Worried about the Providence in Worcester. Here's the reason. I left myself with a full slate of certificates. I cannot buy those extra shares in there. I don't know what I was exactly thinking, but I paid out full, upping the stock value. Of course, stock value is unimportant if that thing goes insolvent, and that's where the problem is. I kind of don't want those loans there because part of what I'm gaining is stock value. I think I paid out half. I hope that's what I said. Which meant a fair amount of money in here, but it's just enough to keep up with the gotta keep building track in case it's viable, but I think it's not, to keep up with the interest payments. The New York Ontario, the Meow, paid out half as well. You know, keep that stock value going up, especially since I have a share in there, whatever. But was able to only pay off one of those loans for it, which means I moved forward 2 spaces, one for paying out and one for the stock value, or for the loan redemption. But everything looks like it's balancing on that knife edge still, and you know, when you're taking half measures, sometimes that's the worst thing you can do, because I'm not taking enough cash in and whatnot to handle things, you know, to be able to make the maximum money that I can off things. But the big thing is, I'm not clearing these loans out, and if those loans don't get cleared out, if I don't end up with a permanent train on there, I got problems. Now, I can take out a whole shitload of loans and get a permanent train on there, but that may be worse than just letting it fail. But I got a lot of shares of it. Letting it fail doesn't seem like an option when you're holding that much. Kind of half measures with the Susquehanna. Unwilling to swallow that $300 load. Paying out half allowed me 2 spaces, but it only got me enough money to service my loan. And I'm not sure I see a way to a permanent train there either yet. I mean, yeah, there's a way. There's a lot more loan I can take, but I don't think I see a pleasant way. I was hoping to retire a loan or 2 off that payout of half, but no, there's just not enough cash. It looked like it was pretty healthy, which is why people stopped shorting it. And I mean, it's a good thing. Paid out and went up 2 spaces. So, I mean, it would not be a good candidate for short sale right now. We'll see how well the Alton and Southern does, because that looks like a disaster waiting to happen there. All right, I done fucked up with the guy who's doing the best. The Arcade in Attica has a complete debt load. Yeah, it's completely leveraged at this point, and was not able to come up with enough with a half run to pay its interest, which means I had to do a full swallow in order to pay interest, and that's going to put it on, you know, this, wow, where's it going? You know, probably not a desirable pickup, except if it gets into, once it gets into liquidation. Not with 5 loans on it. It really isn't that attractive. No permanent train, a couple of dots in interesting places, but, you know, not that great. And it just, it leveraged itself too much, and you can't do that. Now, I could put more cash on it, you know, but not a lot, because its share value is not worth much. But that would give it more room in the debt sample, and if I could get up to a permanent train by doing that, that would be great. Right now, though, I've got a problem. I've got to turn the union around first. The union may be able to feed this a little bit, and I might be able to keep a balance going and juggle these 2 companies and keep them going. But I may be in a position where I just lose this shit. And if I'm not careful, I end up several $100s in debt for it, which wipes away a big chunk of that while I'm ahead, you know, because I cleared out my stock portfolio compared to some other people in order to be able to purchase more union stock at its high value. Oh boy, and now to the end of the line, the Alton and Southern, which I've been trying to hold together, right? Look at all those loans. I have $130. If I swallow that, I still, let's see, I have 6 shares in there, 180, 210 bucks I need to come up with. 130, 180, 190. I'll have to take out another loan just to pay interest. This is like the U.S. government here. This ain't good. I'm not allowed to print money. What happens if I pay out? Does that do me anything good, or a partial payout? You know, so that 130 bucks. The advantage of paying out is that I'd force these people into something kind of troubling, in terms of having to pay some cash out. But I don't think that's worth it. I think I just take that full swallow and Maybe somebody wants to acquire this. I doubt it. It looks like a severely losing proposition. Once it goes into liquidation, of course, then it's, you know, going to go up for sale for its dots, and that's it, including the one on there, which it's got some nice dots, but those dots aren't going to pay for the loans. As bad as it is to have to swallow to pay your loans off, it is far worse to have to swallow and keep taking loans out. That's the sign that your company is not going to survive, and that is a really good sign for all those short holders. They done good on this one, there's no question. They sold it at around 65. It's basically worth nothing at this point, and is not costing them anything either. Although it could have cost them, you know, $6 a share or something like that. Who cares? You know, right? So we export the last 4, and that means interesting stuff's available, and we go into our mergers and acquisitions. And here I come to save the day. A big $450 thrown right into the Grand Trunk. That gives it a huge quantity of cash. It can easily buy a 5-train. It can leverage itself and buy a second one, and maybe save this guy's position on the Alton and Southern. And of course, that may speak ill for the people who are holding this, but if I can get myself out of the acquisitions through a swallow or something like that, because remember, I don't go back from a swallow. I'm at the edge of the thing, so I just gotta figure out a way to pay 3 loans off, and then I'm in the clear, kinda, right? So that's very attractive. And Grand Trunk runs fairly early, so it's probably going to be able to buy a pair of 5s. Yippee-ki-yay. On the somewhat more questionable side, 2 people holding Alton and Southern short positions have bought Grand Trunks at $150 each. Why is this iffy? Well, it may not really be. The point is, this thing's liable to make some money, so investing in it isn't that terrible, right? But I am throwing more cash in here for this to try to save the Alton and Southern, which may not work out very well. And we're going to see a similar thing with the Union coming up, which is also at that $150 a share. Somebody with a lot of money and space for it, which might be enough to try to save the Arcadian Attica, which is still available to release some more shares a little later on after I ditch some of this shit, maybe. Or not, you know, but whatever. There's something of a price for that screw up. So instead of dropping $450 into here, I only dropped $300, which is nowhere near as big a hole. And now, the people with the big money spent it on the Grand Trunk. He may have just taken a hit. He may be in some trouble here, comparatively. Of course, having 3 shares of this and everything, he's just not going to be in the same position the Grand Trunk is to save a railway. I was not thinking clearly. I'm going to undo $150 of this that went into the Grand Trunk. It was an iffy decision anyway, and it's a horrible one because I need to expand one of these rails, don't I? Let me think. No, I was going to combine them because they're in good shape actually. So yeah, let's put that 150 in there. Okay, that's not that bad. Yeah, I thought I needed to free the loans. I don't actually need to. I'm going to merge the Boston and Albany and the Bessemer and Erie into one corporation, which gets me the kind of healthier position here, gets me a couple of trains. I should be able to write this a little bit better. Unfortunately, it is going to drop me down. I'll keep the Boston and Albany, my older company, as the flagship of it. And we got some shares to exchange, basically. Now for acquisitions, there's essentially one company which could buy the Alton and Southern, and that's the Grand Trunk. No one else can take that debt load on. What would doing so mean? It would mean wiping out these shares, basically. And that would be great for the people who are betting against it. In addition, it would mean that I've got, as my only flagship, something that's kind of unable to grow in stock value because it would be dealing with this massive debt. Whereas the Alton & Southern, using trains from the Grand Trunk, could conceivably handle things. The other option would be the Union. I got enough problems with the Arcade and Attica. I don't think I can really save the Union. I could just bid $10, take on all that debt, and get what? Some dots? There really isn't much else worthwhile from the Alton & Southern. Now that would be great for people who are holding a bunch of short certificates on it, because they would basically be wiped out by it, you know, those short certificates. And it would wipe him out of his possibility to save things. But in doing so, I would destroy my own position. So I don't think anybody is going to put an offer on that acquisition share. And we'll see who and what can get themselves out of their predicaments. And honestly, that's so much of this game. This game feels like most XXs do have this sort of, wow, we're fucked, you know, what are we gonna do? How are we gonna save this position? You could just build very cautiously and never get yourself into too much trouble, and, you know, pay out a little bit and make sure you've always got the cash to buy your trains. And that's almost always a recipe for failure. Just careful planning and building ahead. The exception to that is maybe the 1829 type games, where very little of it's about the stock and train manipulation. It's really more about just building yourself a nice track, and that comes down to, well, you know, how well do you do that? Which to me is a very boring and placid sort of game. This one is a really, really disruptive game, which means if you try to play it really carefully, you don't take out a lot of loans, you don't do this, you don't do that, you end up falling behind, I think, for the most part. That's not to say that you have to play really, really recklessly. In fact, this guy, I feel, has played very recklessly and isn't doing badly. But this guy's played a little bit more cautiously and is in a pretty good position. The most cautious is probably over here with the Pittsburgh. You know, nice stock value. A company that probably is going to survive, but it's going to have to take some risks in terms of taking on some loan very shortly, or else swallow or something. So, I mean, it's got a hurdle ahead of it to get to the permanent train, and he's not doing all that well, you know. If he can't keep the Pittsburgh above water and continually growing in stock value, it's just not going to do that much for him. Right now, he's got a lot of stock value on it. Maybe the answer is to get rid of a lot of that stock and throw it out in the open market or something and start another corporation. It's got some nice position, though, right here in the center, ready to play in New York. Able to get to Chicago. Nice potential run there. So I feel like I want to just keep playing that out and see where that comes. Another one that's playing kind of in between is over here. But again, he's got a fair amount of debt. 6 debt boxes. Same as the Union here. This guy's got a little bit more. Who's not doing well? I don't know. Boston and Albany doesn't look like it's doing all that hot. It just did that merger, and I don't know. I mean, it doesn't look much worse than the Pittsburgh, but my track's not quite as good. It's disjointed. It's... yeah, I mean, I merged, so I have more tokens, but as opposed to increasing totally, but I got a little bit of loan and not as much cash on board. But don't discount these. That's 240 bucks sitting in the treasury. That I can buy one of, somebody else could buy another, and that could help a little bit. And then also whatever I'm paying out, to whatever degree that I'm paying out, it does produce some cash, and with a couple of trains that could be a big deal. But if I need to swallow, it's not, it's not really helping me. Well, the saga of this crappy camera continues. It saves things in an MP4 format. I've had to use a different file joiner for that, which is a pain in the butt. And then, after it was loaded up to YouTube, YouTube's processing screwed that up and created a psychedelic imagery through most of the video. I'm assuming that's the file joiner's issue. So now I've got Windows Movie Maker running, which I hate doing because it uses like 100% of my computer for an hour. Maybe more than that for a video of the size that I'm producing now. It used to be for whatever. And God, I hate these things. That file joiner used to work fine, although I may have had some issues in the past with it because I remember this camera causing issues before. But anyhow, I think after this video we switch back and just start shooting things in without a screen because I can't repair the screen. I can't cope with what this thing does. Which may have its own problems. I may end up running out of battery or whatever, but this one is not making me very happy in many, many different ways. So where am I? I am on to the second operating round and ready to kick things off. We're still seeing fallout. There's less companies now. I'm just trying to remind myself of where I am. Yeah, it hasn't been that long I had dinner, but as the interest rate has gone down a little bit, and I guess we're ready to shoot. What have we lost? We lost a company over here, and I think that's it. Looks like we're missing one from over there, but I don't see it. Hard call here. 34 share on the Pittsburgh, or 340 bucks on the Pittsburgh. If I just swallow it, I can buy a 6-train or a 5-train, and boom, I'm in great shape. Once the 6s come out, I have a 4 and a 5. I'll be making good money for a long time to come. No loans, no problems, right? Sounds sweet. Pay out half, and I get most of that money and push forward, which I think is still the better move. Get some more cash into my pocket. I have almost nothing to invest with if I don't pay out. So I think I'll go with that. But it does mean probably taking out a little bit of loanage. So 170 puts me to 470. It's going to mean like 3 loans. That's the thing, which definitely hurts the stock value, but who cares? I'm not getting rid of my shares, and everybody else is the ones who are riding on it. So yeah, I think I'll pay out half because I think I'll be able to pay out, make good payouts other times, right? Yeah, because stock value doesn't matter to me, but my cash in hand does. And that massive hit by the Grand Trunk pays out half. Why? Again, I like getting some cash in rather than losing stock position and everything like that. It just it's this middle ground that appeals to me. It ends up staying at the same value rather than going forward. So it was kind of a harder decision there. It was only making 17 a share. Got myself a dot here with the first brown lay and bought myself 2 5-trains with a small number of loans. I should be able to survive those loans and export a 5-train over to the Alton and Southern, which may be enough to keep it kind of alive for a while at least. My faux B&O, the Union, Upgrades New York, makes a run for 200 bucks, which it swallows. and then takes out 3 loans, dropping its share value quite low, but able to get 1.5. Now I would, there's 6 more of these, but because of the interest rates, I'm not getting anywhere near $100 on each, and I don't have much money left after that transaction. So I can't buy that second 5 that I'd really love to buy. It would have been worth, just ditching that value all the way down and then being able to get another permanent train. But that other permanent train is going to come on here. I'm going to have 2 companies with a single train. And that's not horrible. I got tons and tons of cash, so there was no real big deal with swallowing. The big problem I have right now happens to be my portfolio limit. And that's going to be kind of a problem because I'm not going to have great railroads compared to some other people. So that's going to run pretty hard for a while. Who knows? I don't know. I don't know if anybody's going to end up with more than 1 train is kind of the thing. Things get even uglier for the Elgin and Joliet. Swallows takes out 4 loans, dropping itself to here. And you can see it's oversubscribed now, over leveraged. I'm going to have trouble paying those loans off, especially as the interest rate starts shooting way up there. And we're almost ready for the 6 trains to come out. When the 6 trains come out, the gray does not happen. That doesn't happen till the 7 trains on this. But it does drop companies down to 2 trains. Gets rid of the 3s as well. And this is, of course, where hard decision making comes into play, right? I'm sitting here with this Boston and Albany. It's got 1 loan. I got the money to pretty much pay off that loan. 130, yeah. I could just let it go by the wayside, right? Run a 4 train, sell off maybe most of my shares next time. The problem is, this is 2 of my companies put together here. The alternative, though, is trying to come up with $750 worth of cash, which current loans are 70. That's like 10 loans. I don't know what my run is going to be. I've got the thing kind of financially lucrative or balanced right now, but man, is it in trouble. And that leads me to say, wow, nice that I'm shorted out on those Alton Southerns. They look like they're just going to go into the trash heap real soon. Now, if the Boston and Albany doesn't get the 6 train, who will? The NW doesn't look like it has the money for it, but it could be in a world of hurt if I can crash it. The Susquehanna, definitely not, and probably going into hell as well. The Alton and Attica, or Arcade and Attica, not there. So if I can buy this 6 in any viable sense, I can do a lot of hurt to a lot of people. If I can't buy it, there's some companies that are going to be in really good shape. If nobody's buying a 6 train. Actually, the Alton Southern has that 5 train. But a single 5 train, that's going to have trouble paying off these loans. So, it'll survive, but not with much. I was kind of counting on having 2 trains there. The 5s fell a little harder than I would have expected. Not sure why. Just not at all sure why. As a matter of fact, I guess the issue was I wasn't expecting the Pittsburgh to be able to buy one right off the bat.